I would feel terrible if I denied the cast of Jerry Paris's Genius for even one episode. I'd feel really bad. You think Ron Howard is the sweetest guy in Hollywood, the calm director that everyone loves? Think again. He had a secret list of 7 stars he promised he would never work with again, even though he smiled politely. They were his friends, teachers, and even heroes. They helped him win Oscars, but then they broke the thing that made his career. And once you know who they are, you'll see why even the nicest man in Hollywood learned to detest. First, Russell Crowe, the crazy genius who drove Ron Howard crazy. Russell Crowe was the reason Ron Howard said Cinderella Man was the hardest movie he had made. Their partnership was like a ticking time bomb from the start. Crowe stepped onto the set not like an actress, but as a soldier ready for battle. He wanted to be in charge, give orders, and fight. Howard stayed away from everything. They had already discreetly disagreed about creative choices during A Beautiful Mind. But Cinderella Man in 2004 elevated that tension into open antagonism. Crowe questioned every decision. Lighting, pace, and even where the camera is placed. During a tough boxing match, he yelled across the ring, "You don't understand the character's pain." Howard looked back, angry but mute. The crew said it felt like watching two titans try to outwill each other after that day. The set got heavier every week. Crowe made everyone reshoot whole monologues because he didn't trust the emotion. Their enthusiasm grew toxic while Howard tried to keep the schedule from falling apart. Howard told producers in private that directing Crowe was like trying to build a church while riding a bull. He wouldn't get back together with her even after the movie got good reviews. Howard's answer never altered when reporters asked about another cooperation. One time was enough. Crowe subsequently said that their methods were too dissimilar to ever work together. Second, Jim Carrey, the green monster who drove Ron Howard crazy. Ron Howard jokingly joked that How the Grinch Stole Christmas almost drove him crazy. In 2000, he had a Christmas dream that evolved into one of the most tumultuous times of his whole career. It's all Jim Carrey's fault. When the green makeup went on, the man was dazzling, unpredictable, and impossible to control. The production went crazy from the first week. Carrey spent 8 hours a day inside layers of latex and fur. By the third day, he was snapping at everyone, even Howard, makeup artists, and helpers. Carrey once walked off the scene in a fit of rage, yelling, "You try acting inside a rubber coffin." Howard tried to calm him down, but Carr's anger didn't stop there. He would start making up whole scenes out of the blue, change the lines in the middle of a take, and sometimes toss the script on the floor in anger. One member of the crew said that the tension felt like walking on shattered glass. Howard's typical calmness broke. He quietly summoned a meeting with Universal executives and told them that the production was getting out of hand. The studio hired a Navy SEAL survival expert, the same guy who taught Carrey how to deal with the outfit so she wouldn't leave. Howard appeared tired in every behind-the-scenes photo by the time production was over. When reporters asked about Carrey, he laughed and said she provided a lot of enthusiasm. But he told people privately that the filming had made him look years older. The movie became a Christmas classic. But it hurt some for good. Howard and Carrey never worked together again. Tom Cruise is number 3. When perfection went to battle, it was impossible to picture Ron Howard, the calmest director in Hollywood, going head-to-head with Tom Cruise, the biggest star of the early 1990s. But in the 1992 blockbuster Far and Away, what began out as a dream pairing turned into one of the biggest fights in movie history. At that time, Cruise was on top of the world after Top Gun and Born on the 4th of July. Howard, on the other hand, was gaining renown as a director who valued discipline and attention to detail. But there was an immediate confrontation between Cruise's intensity and Howard's order. Cruise wants every move to be full of feeling. Howard, on the other hand, sought quiet, time, and accuracy. Their dreams couldn't be more different. Cruise halted in the middle of a scene in Dublin one afternoon, took off his gloves, and barked. "This doesn't seem real." Howard's face became blank. He just glanced at Tom and stated, "Real isn't about noise." The team stopped talking. People still talk about that time. Nicole Kidman stood between the two men and tried to calm them down. It didn't work. Cruise started revising the blocking and asking for retakes, saying that the moment needed blood, not tranquility. Howard's smile went away for good. He started shooting extra coverage since he didn't think Cruise could do the same thing twice. He never cast Cruise again after that, and when asked about it months later, he said, "Some people confuse passion with chaos." 4 is Mel Gibson. The fight for power that broke ransom. Ron Howard felt he was hiring a pro. Instead, he got a battleground. Ransom was meant to be the perfect match in 1996. The calm director Howard and Mel Gibson. He had just won 2 Oscars for Braveheart. But as soon as the camera started rolling, there was a fight for control. Gibson wasn't just an actor in the movie. He wanted to be in charge of it. Howard was known for writing tight screenplays and directing carefully. Gibson ripped that order to shreds. He asked about the lighting, changed lines in the middle of scenes, and gave commands like a second director. Witnesses alleged that during one violent argument, Gibson slapped his script down on the table and said, "I know what the audience wants." I wanted to win an Oscar. Howard's answer was quiet but harsh. "Mel, you're not the director of this one." The air got really frigid. It felt like a duel in every scene from then on. Gibson declined to do numerous takes, saying that being spontaneous made him authentic. Howard started filming backup footage without telling him. The stress spread. To keep things from falling apart, Universal execs came to the set twice. Everyone looked tired when Ransom eventually ended. Howard said it was the hardest project of my life, but the movie turned out excellent. Gibson, on the other hand, officially applauded the movie, but never spoke of Howard again. Howard never cast him again after that. 5. Marlon Brando, the Hollywood god who became Ron Howard's worst nightmare. Working with Marlon Brando was like trying to reason with a hurricane, Ron Howard famously quipped. Their fight in the middle of the 1990s was short but memorable. Brando was already angry when he got to the set. He despised schedules, didn't show up for rehearsals, and wouldn't learn a single line. He had to tape every card around the stage so he could look at them in the middle of a scene. He stopped filming one afternoon and said, "This dialogue is terrible. Now, write it again." Howard tried to talk sense into him, but Brando merely smiled and walked away to his trailer for 3 hours. He had decided that his character needed a new accent when he got back. The cameras were on, and no one knew what he was doing. Howard, who was known for being patient, started to lose it. He informed his crew in private, "This isn't acting. It's sabotage." The project fell apart completely weeks later. Brando's erratic behavior had ruined the schedule, run out of money, and embarrassed Howard in front of the studio. He never said Brando's name in public again, but many who know him say that experience transformed him. The dream of working with Brando had become a nightmare, one that made Ron Howard promise to never mix together genius with crazy again. 6th place goes to Hugh Grant, the smirk that Ron Howard couldn't tolerate. Hugh Grant had a caustic tongue that pierced deeper than anyone thought, especially with Ron Howard. This was true even though he was British and wore velvet suits. Howard and Grant didn't fight on a movie set. They fought over boardroom tables and during Hollywood lunches in the early 2000s, when Howard was thinking about casting Grant in a romantic drama for Imagine Entertainment. What should have been a casual meeting for creative people went bad in just a few minutes. Grant showed up late, was rude, and made fun of the Hollywood system that Howard had built his career on. He reportedly commented, "You Americans think emotion needs explosions," while Howard sat across the table with a blank look. That pride set the tone. Grant went through Howard's script with a fine-tooth comb, saying it was too romantic and that the studio didn't get humor. It wasn't just talk. It was looking down on someone. Howard discreetly closed his notepad at the end of the meeting and observed, "I think we're looking for different things." That line stopped the work together right away. The production went on with a different actor, and Howard never thought about working with Grant again. Years later, in interviews, Grant's snark about American directors came back, saying they were too serious. Fans quickly figured out who he was talking about. People who work in the industry said Howard was quite angry. He made sure that Grant's name never appeared on his production lists again. Chevy Chase is number 7, The Walking Calamity. Ron Howard said no. Ron Howard didn't have to work with Chevy Chase to despise the notion. It was enough to hear the man's name. Universal briefly offered putting them together in a big-budget comedy in the late 1980s. Howard said no right away, even before the first meeting was set up. He told producer Brian Grasser just what he thought. "I won't watch a hurricane." At that point, Chase's name had already swept through Hollywood like wildfire. He had a fight with almost every cast member on Saturday Night Live. Years later, when working on Community, he stormed off set, insulted the writers, and labeled his co-stars lazy. Howard didn't have to see it for himself. The stories from filmmakers who had been there were plenty. That did it. When Chase learned that Howard had said no, he reportedly made fun of the director at a party, stating, "He only works with nice guys. It must be really boring." Howard's answer was cold and to the point. That's the point. From then on, Chase's name became a Hollywood shorthand for what Howard didn't want to do. Even years later, when people in the community started talking about Chase's nasty temper again, Howard was asked if he would ever think of directing him again. He gave a swift and clear answer. "It's not worth filming some turmoil." Which of these 7 names stunned you the most? Do you believe Ron Howard was right to stop them, or did his ego stand in the way of greatness? Please leave a comment below to let us know what you think.